That's a stunning statistic, and it tells us that balance isn't some minor concern. It's a fundamental indicator of how well your entire system is functioning. Your balance depends on three different systems working together. Your inner ear tells you about motion and orientation, your eyes provide visual reference points, and the nerve endings in your muscles and joints constantly feed information to your brain about where your body is in space. When these three systems are all communicating clearly and your brain can integrate the information quickly, you balance easily without thinking about it. But as we age, all three systems tend to degrade, and more importantly, they stop working together as smoothly as they once did. The wonderful news is that you can retrain these systems at any age by simply practicing balance exercises, and you'll see improvement faster than you might expect. Start with something completely manageable and safe. Stand near your kitchen counter or a sturdy piece of furniture you can grab if needed, and lift one foot just an inch or two off the ground while you count to 10. That's it for the beginning. Nothing dramatic or risky, just 10 seconds of standing on one foot while you've got something right there to steady you if you wobble. As this becomes comfortable, you can progress by closing your eyes for a few seconds, which removes the visual input and forces your other balance systems to work harder, or by turning your head slowly from side to side while you balance, or by standing on a slightly soft surface like a folded towel or couch cushion. Each of these progressions challenges your balance system in a new way, and your brain responds by building better connections and faster processing of balance information. People who practice single-leg standing for just a few minutes every day reduce their risk of falls by more than a third and actually walk faster, which might seem unrelated until you understand that walking speed is considered such an important vital sign in older adults that doctors track it right alongside blood pressure and heart rate. There's a woman who'd stopped going to her book club and coffee dates after she took a small tumble in a parking lot, not because she was badly hurt, but because the fear of falling again made her want to stay home where everything felt safe and predictable. After several weeks of daily balance practice while she brushed her teeth and waited for the microwave, she felt steady enough to venture out again, and within a few months she was not only attending her regular activities, but had actually started leading walking groups at the local park. The confidence that comes from knowing your body will catch you and keep you upright is absolutely life-changing, and it opens up a world of activities and experiences that fear had closed off. Your brain actually grows new tissue in the regions responsible for balance and coordination when you challenge these systems regularly, which proves that the old idea of inevitable mental and physical decline is simply wrong. Your brain remains plastic and adaptable well into your later decades if you give it the right kind of stimulation. One of the most overlooked aspects of healthy aging is posture, which affects far more than just how you look. The forward rounded upper back that becomes increasingly common with age actually compresses your lungs and digestive organs, makes balance more precarious, and increases your risk of falls by nearly half. This hunched forward position develops because the muscles of your upper back become weak from disuse, while the muscles across your chest get tight from all the forward-reaching activities we do every day, like cooking, driving, and using computers or phones. The solution lies in strengthening the muscles between your shoulder blades that pull your shoulders back and keep your spine aligned. And one of the best tools for this is a simple elastic resistance band that you can pick up at any sporting goods store for less than the cost of lunch. You secure the band at about chest height around a doorknob or railing. Hold the ends in your hands, step back until you feel tension, and then pull the handles straight back toward your ribs while you squeeze your shoulder blades together behind you. The key is really focusing on that squeeze between your shoulder blades, almost like you're trying to hold a pencil between them, because that ensures you're working the right muscles rather than just yanking with your arms. The resistance band provides a type of loading that gets progressively harder as you pull, which perfectly matches how your muscles generate force, and research shows this produces strength gains nearly 30% faster than traditional weights, while being much easier on your joints. People who do this exercise regularly show dramatic improvements in their posture measurements within weeks, and many report that chronic upper back and neck pain that they'd lived with for years simply disappears. Better posture doesn't just reduce pain, it literally helps you breathe better by giving your lungs room to fully expand, with measurements showing lung capacity improvements of more than 20% in some cases. There's a retired office worker who developed such a pronounced forward curve in his upper back that he couldn't look straight ahead without tilting his head back uncomfortably, and people had stopped making eye contact with him because his posture made him seem closed off and unapproachable. After 2 months of daily resistance band work, his shoulders had rolled back, his spine had straightened, and strangers began commenting on how upright and youthful he looked. The psychological impact of standing tall and moving through the world with your head up and shoulders back shouldn't be underestimated. It affects how others see you, certainly, but more importantly, it affects how you see yourself and how much energy and confidence you feel. Your back muscles connect to nearly every movement you make throughout the day, from reaching into a cabinet to maintaining your balance on uneven ground. And when they're strong and functioning properly, everything else becomes easier and safer. The strongest predictor of future health is your grip strength, which seems like an odd measure until you realize that your ability to grip firmly requires the entire chain of muscles from your hand all the way through your forearm, upper arm, and into your back and core to be functioning well, so it serves as a simple test of your overall muscle quality and strength. All of these exercises work together to address different aspects of physical function, but there's one form of movement that seems to tie everything together and produce benefits that go beyond any single exercise could achieve alone. The practice of Tai Chi, which originated in China centuries ago but has been extensively studied by Western medical researchers in recent decades, involves slow, flowing movements that continuously shift your weight, rotate your torso, and coordinate your arms and legs in complex patterns. What makes this so powerful for older adults is that it simultaneously challenges your strength, balance, coordination, and concentration all at once, creating a kind of full system workout that produces effects you simply can't get from isolated exercises. Studies following thousands of people over multiple years have found that those who practice Tai Chi regularly reduce their risk of falling by nearly half, which is a better result than any single intervention, including strength training, balance exercises, or medications. But the benefits extend far beyond fall prevention. Brain scans show that regular Tai Chi practitioners actually have more gray matter in regions responsible for movement control, memory, and decision-making compared to people who don't practice, meaning the activity is literally causing your brain to maintain and even grow tissue in areas that typically shrink with age.
The slow, deliberate nature of the movements requires constant attention and adjustment, which keeps your nervous system engaged and adaptive rather than running on autopilot the way it does during repetitive activities like walking the same route every day. Every movement in Tai Chi is slightly different from the last, with continuous variation in weight distribution, direction, and coordination. And this variation is exactly what triggers your brain to form new connections and pathways. The practice also includes a meditative breathing component that activates your body's relaxation response, lowering stress hormones that otherwise accelerate muscle loss and mental decline. Measurements show that regular practitioners have stress hormone levels more than 30% lower than non-practitioners, which has enormous implications for everything from your immune function to your cardiovascular health. People who take up Tai Chi often report that they feel calmer and more centered in their daily lives, less reactive to small irritations, and more capable of handling challenges with equanimity. There's also a meaningful social component if you join a class, which brings its own set of health benefits, since isolation and loneliness are serious risk factors for decline as we age. The practice requires no special equipment, can be modified for any fitness level, including people who need to remain seated, and actually becomes more beneficial the longer you do it, with studies showing continued improvements even after 5 years of regular practice. One woman who had fallen twice in a single year and was becoming afraid to leave her house alone started attending a community Tai Chi class at her library, and 3 years later she hasn't fallen once and describes feeling more graceful and confident in her movement than she has in decades. The weight-bearing nature of the movements helps maintain bone density, with practitioners showing annual increases in bone mineral content, while most sedentary people lose a % or 2 every year. Your brain responds to the constant novelty of Tai Chi movements by staying plastic and adaptable, which is exactly what you want as you age. A nervous system that can learn, adjust, and form new patterns rather than becoming rigid and fixed. The coordination between breathing and movement improves your cardiovascular efficiency and oxygen delivery, and the gentle stretching component maintains flexibility in ways that complement the other exercises perfectly. What we're really talking about here is a fundamental shift in how we think about exercise after 60. Moving away from the outdated idea that you should just keep doing the same thing you've always done and hope it's enough, and toward a more sophisticated understanding that different types of movement serve different purposes, and you need variety to maintain all the different systems your body relies on. Walking has its place, certainly, especially for your cardiovascular system and your daily step count. But it's incomplete as a total exercise program because it leaves major muscle groups unchallenged, does nothing for your upper body or your balance systems, and doesn't provide enough resistance to actually build strength or bone density. The 5 movement categories we've discussed: upper body resistance with wall push-ups, lower body strength with chair squats, balance training with single leg stands, postural work with resistance bands, and the integrated full-body practice of Tai Chi together create a comprehensive approach that addresses every major physical system affected by aging. The research on this is absolutely clear and consistent across hundreds of studies. People who incorporate these varied types of movement into their regular routines don't just slow their decline, they actually reverse it in measurable ways, rebuilding muscle that was lost, strengthening bones that were weakening, improving balance that was deteriorating, and enhancing cognitive function that was declining. These aren't small effects or marginal improvements. We're talking about people in their 70s and 80s regaining capabilities they thought were gone forever, returning to activities they'd given up, and maintaining independence that seemed to be slipping away. The old model of aging as an inevitable downward slide, where the best you could hope for was to slow the descent, has been completely overturned by the evidence of what targeted exercise can accomplish. Your muscles will respond to strength training at 80 almost as readily as they did at 40, given the right stimulus and enough time. Your balance systems can be retrained and improved at any age through consistent practice. Your bones will lay down new mineral content in response to the right kinds of loading forces. Your brain will form new connections and even grow new tissue in response to novel movement challenges. None of this requires expensive equipment, dangerous medications, or complicated programs, just a willingness to spend 20 or 30 minutes most days doing movements that challenge your body in specific, purposeful ways. The difference between people who maintain vibrant, independent lives well into their 80s and 90s and those who struggle with disability and dependence often comes down to these simple movement practices started and maintained consistently over years. Every single day you practice these exercises is a day you're actively building a stronger, more resilient body that will serve you well in the years ahead. And every day you skip is a day the natural processes of aging continue unchallenged.
This isn't about vanity or appearance. It's about maintaining the physical capability to do the things you love, to care for yourself without assistance, to travel and play with grandchildren and pursue interests, and simply move through the world with confidence and ease. The path forward is remarkably clear based on what we now know from decades of research. Include resistance work for both your upper and lower body, practice balance deliberately and regularly, address your posture with resistance band back strengthening, and consider adding a practice like Tai Chi that brings everything together into an integrated whole. You don't need to do all of this every day or spend hours exercising. Even 20 or 30 minutes 4 or 5 days a week split between these different types of movement will produce significant results if you stay consistent over weeks and months. The people who succeed at this aren't necessarily more motivated or disciplined than anyone else. They've just found ways to make these movements part of their regular routine, as normal and unremarkable as brushing teeth or making coffee. Some do wall push-ups while waiting for the kettle to boil, chair squats during commercial breaks, balance practice while talking on the phone, resistance band work while watching the evening news, and Tai Chi in a weekly community class that's become a social highlight. The key is finding the small pockets of time that already exist in your day and filling them with movements that will pay enormous dividends in your future function and independence. Your future self, the person you'll be 5 and 10 years from now, is shaped by what you do today and tomorrow and the day after that. You have far more control over how you age than you've probably been led to believe, and the simple movements we've discussed give you the tools to exercise that control effectively. This is genuinely hopeful, empowering information. You're not helpless in the face of aging. You're not relegated to inevitable decline, and you don't need to accept decreased function as your fate. The choice is genuinely yours, and the science strongly suggests that making time for these varied, purposeful movements is one of the most valuable investments you can make in your health and quality of life for the years and decades ahead.
I want to be honest with you about something most people discover far too late, and it could change everything about how you move through the second half of your life. If you're anywhere past 55 and you've been walking for exercise because you thought it was the safest choice, what I'm about to share might surprise you, but I promise it comes from a place of genuine care and decades of medical observation. I've spent over 30 years working with older adults, and I've seen the same pattern repeat itself thousands of times. Good people doing what they've been told is right, only to find themselves struggling with joint pain, balance issues, and a slow loss of independence they never saw coming. Walking is fine, don't get me wrong, but it's nowhere near the complete answer we've been led to believe it is, and there are 5 specific types of movement that medical research now shows can do something walking alone simply cannot do. They can actually rebuild what time has taken away. Let me explain this in plain terms, the way I'd talk to my own parents, because this matters more than almost anything else when it comes to staying active and independent as the years go by. Your body after 60 operates under different rules than it did when you were younger, and the exercise advice that made sense back then doesn't necessarily serve you now. The muscles in your legs, arms, and core don't just get weaker because time passes. They shrink because they're not being challenged in the specific ways they need to stay strong. Walking keeps your legs moving, absolutely, and that's valuable for your heart and circulation, but it does very little for your upper body. Almost nothing for your balance systems, and it doesn't provide the kind of resistance your bones and muscles need to actually get stronger, rather than just maintain what's left. There's a whole category of movement that focuses on pushing and pulling against resistance, and it turns out this is exactly what your arms, shoulders, and chest need to stay functional for all those daily tasks you don't think about until they become difficult. One of the simplest and safest ways to work these muscles is by standing at a wall and doing a modified push-up, which sounds harder than it is, I promise. You stand about an arm's length away from any sturdy wall, place your hands flat against it at shoulder height, and then lean your body forward until your nose gets close to the wall before pushing yourself back to where you started. The whole movement is controlled and gentle, but your muscles are working against your own body weight, which is precisely the kind of challenge they respond to by getting stronger. Studies have tracked people doing this exercise just 3 times a week, and within 2 months they showed measurably stronger arms, shoulders, and core muscles, the exact areas that help you catch yourself if you stumble, push yourself up from a low chair, or carry bags without straining something. One woman I know couldn't open a jar of pasta sauce without help, and that small loss of strength bothered her more than she wanted to admit because it felt like the beginning of needing help with everything. She started doing wall push-ups every morning while her coffee brewed, nothing fancy or time-consuming, and within a few weeks she was opening jars again and feeling a lot more capable overall. The remarkable thing about this kind of resistance work is that it also helps your bones stay dense, particularly in your arms and shoulders, where fractures can be devastating if you fall. Your skeleton responds to the stress of muscles pulling on it by laying down more mineral content, literally becoming stronger in response to the challenge. But walking doesn't create enough force in your upper body to trigger this response. That's not a criticism of walking, it's just recognizing that different movements do different jobs, and if you want to maintain full body strength and function, you need to include movements that challenge all parts of you, not just your legs. Another absolutely crucial movement pattern involves sitting down and standing up, which you probably do dozens of times every day without considering it as exercise, but it's actually one of the most important physical skills you have. The muscles on the front of your thighs and your backside do almost all the work when you stand from a chair, and these particular muscles waste away faster than almost any others as you age, sometimes losing 40% of their mass between 50 and 80 if you don't actively work to keep them strong. This explains why so many older folks struggle to get up from soft couches or need to push off with their hands, and why the toilet can become a surprisingly difficult piece of furniture. The solution is beautifully simple. You practice the exact movement you want to stay good at, which is sitting down and standing up from a chair, but you do it slowly and with control to make it actually challenging. Sit on the edge of a sturdy chair with your feet flat on the floor, cross your arms over your chest so you can't use them to help, and then lean your body forward by pushing through your heels while keeping your chest lifted. The whole movement is controlled and gentle, but your muscles are working against your own body weight, which is precisely the kind of challenge they respond to by getting stronger. Studies have tracked people doing this exercise just 3 times a week, and within 2 months they showed measurably stronger legs and much better ability to get up and down without assistance. One grandfather I heard about who couldn't play on the floor with his grandchildren because he worried he wouldn't be able to get back up without help, which broke his heart a little every time they asked. After a few months of practicing chair squats while watching the evening news, he not only could get down on the floor, but pop right back up again, and he said it felt like getting a piece of his life back. The beauty of this movement is that it trains exactly the skill you need in real life. You're not building strength in some abstract way that might or might not translate to daily activities. You're literally practicing the movement you want to maintain, and your body responds by getting better at that specific task. Your leg muscles aren't just about mobility, though. They're hugely important for your metabolism and blood sugar control, because large muscle groups like your thighs and glutes burn significant amounts of energy and help regulate your glucose levels, even when you're not exercising. Keeping these muscles strong and active has benefits that ripple through your entire health picture in ways that go far beyond just being able to stand up from a chair. Balance is another aspect of physical function that most people don't think about until it becomes a problem, but your ability to balance on one foot is actually an incredibly powerful predictor of your overall health and longevity. Researchers have found that if you can stand on one foot for just 10 seconds after age 70, your risk of dying from any cause over the next several years drops by about half compared to people who can't manage those 10 seconds.